please welcome the incredible Rachel Godfrey.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, all the way from, is it the Middle East? Is that what it's called?
Yes, I'm in
Okay.
Abu Dhabi. So just we're neighbors with Dubai.
Yeah, my uncle used to be an air traffic controller in Abu Dhabi and
You can
Bahrain. It's all around the same area.
we consider Abu Dhabi like the older, richer, more handsome brother to Dubai.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah, it's
Older,
fun.
richer, handsomer. It's almost like my husband. He's getting older, you know? Oh, I love it. Like we want to go there in November. So I hope this
Oh, you'll
whole
love it.
war crap
I,
smooths over.
I think it will pretty quickly. And I think the best thing about Dubai is, I mean, I've been here now since 2017 and I've been coming back and forth to the Middle East for, oh my gosh, over 20 years. And so much has happened here. And I think the best thing about being in the Middle East is, especially in the UAE, is that it's so progressive. It's like entrepreneur central. Everybody is here to do better for themselves. And it's such an infectious place to be. It doesn't matter who you talk to. Everybody has got that real growth mindset of, leaving wherever home was and now making the UAE home. And so, no, we're so lucky to be here. Everything is so progressive in terms of like AI, cryptocurrencies, digital assets, and then, of course, just general entrepreneurship. It's amazing.
I read a stat, and maybe this was ChatGPT, so I have not fact checked this, but is it true that about 63% of residents of Dubai are expats? Like, does that feel about right?
I think maybe even it's more than that. I don't know. Again,
Whoa.
I don't know the stats on it, but I would say even more than that because remember, we haven't got just, Western expats here. We've got like so many Indians, Pakistanis, Filipinos,
Yeah.
the whole economy works on expat culture. And but the best thing is about the UAE is that there are so many nationalities, races, religions, like all of these different people, but everybody just gets on and just respects each other. And it's a really
Mm.
calm, peaceful place to be in that manner. Look, Dubai is not calm and peaceful. It's crazy and it's exciting and it's like it's loud, but there's also this undertone of everybody just gets on, and that's
Oh,
really
I
nice.
love that. It sounds like it's a peaceful.
Yes.
Like we see
Yeah.
each other as humans as opposed to anything else.
Absolutely. And the
Mm.
kids grow up with friends from all different, like literally friends from all over the world. It's amazing.
I love that. Yeah, here, well, we're on the mountains of Canada, so you can imagine that the diversity isn't that much, although it is changing, which is nice. Um, but I love that. Okay, so tell us a little bit about what you do.
So, a little bit of a backstory. I've been in the health and the fitness industry and the wellness industry now for nearly 20 years. So a long time. I started my career as a physio back in the day. And then I got more involved actually in strength conditioning. And so what happened was after I graduated, I was working in team sports, so contact and combat sports. And I became a lot more interested in what the strength and conditioning coaches were doing. Obviously, as a team physio, you spend a lot of time in a weights room, you're looking at people's biomechanics. And I was so lucky to have some incredible strength coaches that I was working with. I mean, I was a junior physio. I really didn't know much at all. Yes, I'd been lifting and I'd had, a little bit of a background in weight training, but I didn't really know what I was doing. And so I became more and more interested in what strength coaches were doing rather than what I was doing in clinic. So I really fell more into sort of bridging that gap between physio and strength and conditioning, because what I would find, especially working with athletes, is that they come out of clinic and then they would go straight back onto the field. And there was this real gray area of progressive rehab that needed to be filled by somebody who really understood an orthopedic profile and a strength profile and all of, the body as a whole. And, that really trained my eye into looking into obviously the way people moved and different bodies and different physiques, men and women, to really pinpoint and get to the bottom of what the problem was very quickly. So that was basically the start of my career, and I guess into the middle. And then in around 2000, I think it must have been about 2008, 2009, when YouTube just started picking up, I started posting some videos on YouTube of my own training. And I started to have ladies messaged me saying, wow, like, how do you lift like that and, basically not look like a bodybuilder? And so, strength training wasn't popular in women like it is today. And I'm so happy that, women are training now, and it's really trendy for women to lift weights, which is amazing. And we should all be doing it. And so then I launched my first online business in around 2012, 2013, called Athletic Fox. And this is called the Athletic Fox Blueprint, where I really took the principles of strength and conditioning with what I call baseline nutrition. So very simple principles around nutrition and pillars around health, teaching them to women of all ages, shapes, and sizes. And so I really got to see what worked long term and really where women were struggling. And honestly, where women were struggling then is where they're struggling now, and that's with self-worth. So I then met my husband in 2015, and I was just starting to really go more into that world of NLP, more trying to help women with their self-worth. Relationship with food, and women's relationship with food is terrible. It's probably not the number one thing that we help clients with. And in finding a husband, I also found a business partner, because he had been working in that industry for many, many years and was way more experienced than I was. So, it's one of those things where people say, oh my gosh, how do you work with your spouse? But honestly, it's so easy, because when your values are really aligned, and like David and I are very different leaders. I'm that typical classic chaotic entrepreneur where I have the vision and I see it and I just, ready, fire, aim, as they say. Whereas David is a lot more of a methodical, a man, I guess, that methodical, like dotting the I's and crossing the T's, whereas I'm just chaotic. So we worked really well together in launching then the second business, Chase Life. And that was 10 years ago. So here we are today, still doing our thing and basically specializing in helping women, professional women, especially, those A players, entrepreneurs, execs, high-level execs, high-achieving women have it all. And I think there's a real misconception of when you get to a certain stage in your career and you've got a team to run, you've got a young family at home, the stress that women are under nowadays, to try and shoehorn yet another diet and exercise into that already chaotic lifestyle is not working for them. And so we provide another alternative to that.
Oh my gosh, it's the time thing. Let's talk about that, because, I just started a couple days ago. I just arbitrarily created my own challenge called 30-Day Renee.
Love that.
And in 30 days, I wanted to dial in my nutrition and movement. And people kept asking me, what program am I following? I'm like, none. I'm following my own. It's not hard for me to recognize that I need movement every day. It doesn't have to be like HIIT or weightlifting, but movement every day, and avoiding certain foods, like refined foods and like over processed stuff, sugar, alcohol. It doesn't mean completely taking it out of my diet. For me, it's not about losing weight. For me, it's really about taking 30 days to create more of a sustainable future for my nutrition and for my health. But what I realized, the hardest thing, like even when I did 75 hard, so for those who don't know 75 hard, it's 75 days where you have to accomplish 5 things. And if you miss something, you have to start over again. The hardest thing was the time in finding to work out. Well, that one had 2 workouts. But even today, the time to work out, because for me, recording this episode, it's 6 a.m. And then it's my son's last day of school. So I got to bring him to the bus stop. And I have friends in from out of town. And this is what I did. I said, listen, you need to work out. I need to work out. I don't want to just go for a lunch with a buddy. Let's work out together. And so she's actually going to come to my house and work out. But had it not been for like being able to just move the dials, I would not have worked out. Yeah. So how do you coach women through, because it's not about finding the time to work out, it's actually just the motivation to do it. What's the mindset tips for that?
So I've got 2 approaches to this. So the first one is your identity, because when you identify as somebody who is a fit, lean, and healthy person, it then becomes absolutely non-negotiable. And, Jocko Willink always talks about how discipline equals freedom. And we'll come on to that in a minute, because a lot of people think that discipline means that you have like a noose around your neck and you have to do something. when actually discipline is freedom, because when you have set the non-negotiable that, let's just say, for example, you're going to work out 3 days a week. So I work out 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 5 in the morning. Everybody in my household knows that that is my training time between 5, sometimes 5:30, but between like 5 and 6:30, that's my training time. I cannot be found. You cannot contact me. It is non-negotiable time for me to train. And so, am I always motivated to go to the gym? Hell no. I can tell you now, more often than not, I do not want to go. But it's the discipline that takes me there. And the best thing, and this is where discipline really does equal freedom, because discipline removes that negotiating with yourself. That, oh, well, I woke up too early this morning. Or, oh, I'm really into my journaling right now. Like, this is such a bullshit thing that I tell myself all the time. I get into flow with like my journaling and I'm loving it. And I'm getting all these like creative downloads. And it's like, oh, I could just push my workout back 15 minutes.
Oh, this is so me. You're talking about me. Are you spying on me?
I don't know. Maybe we're twins. Maybe, I don't know. But we like, even though, and for us, you get to that stage where like you really are being productive and you really are in flow. Like, that's not a lie, but it's still one of those things that you said that you were going to go to the gym.
Oh, you so you're said, just like, you're breaking agreements with yourself.
Yes.
So then the guilt builds, but then also if you have any emotional intelligence, all of this is just holding up a mirror to where you're doing this in other areas of your life as well.
Right. So that's like part of identity. And I don't know about you, but I've definitely found this in my life, and I see it all of the time with clients. In fact, I was on a coaching call yesterday and I brought it up, and all of my girls were like, oh my God, how did you know? And that's the piece about complacency, because I think once you get to a certain stage in your life, so I'll tell you this and then I'll tell you what I've done to get over this. So once you get to a certain stage in your life, and things become like a little bit easier, right? My kids are now 7 and 5. Like, I'm out of that baby phase. Business is good and it's always challenging, which is great. But, you can kind of get to the stage where things are kind of like a little bit more cruisy. Kids are a little bit more chilled. Business is good. And like, of course, like, we have winter, spring, summer, and fall in business. And, we can always be progressing, but we can always be progressing in our physique and our body. But there's always an element of complacency there. And for me, I had this mirror held up to me where I had one of my mentors said to me, so, what are you doing with your physique at the moment? Like, what are your goals with your physique? And for me, I literally just turned around and I was like, oh, well, I'm just kind of like cruising with that at the moment. I'm in a maintenance phase. And she turned around to me and she was like, really? And I was like, well, what do you mean, really? And she said, will you grow everywhere else 1% in your life? Why are you not growing? Like, why are you not, doing that with your physique? And I literally had this aha moment of, oh my God, that is why I'm also bored in my business. David and I were not seeing each other because, we're quite happy to be alone. Quite frankly, I run my part of the business. He does his. We're very independent. It's very easy to become complacent. And the minute you become complacent in any area of your life, it extends to every area of your life. And so having that mirror held up to me was honestly such a gift. And it was like a punch in the gut, because I was like, well, what do you mean it's not good enough? It wasn't good enough. I was not holding the highest standards. I was becoming complacent. I had become complacent in my training, even though I was showing up and I was doing the thing, but it was showing every area of my life. And I didn't realize. And so this is when it comes then back to the identity of being a fit, healthy, and lean person, and always progressing. I always want to think about, okay, have I done that 1% every day to get better? Just exactly as you were saying, you've got this 30 days of Renee. Now you're thinking about, okay, so instead of going just to sit for a coffee with my friend, she's going to come work out with me. Like, I love that, because it's achieving that minimal effective dose, and it's conditioning your identity in being that next level version of yourself. And I bet you that will extend then through your day and through the rest of your week to hit the rest of your goals.
Well, and also they've done studies on people that sweat together. So they actually do like some sort of exertion, have deeper relationships,
right?
And deeper bonds.
Right.
Yeah. I love this identity thing. It reminds me of the time, like I used to do CrossFit like crazy For like 8 or 9 years, I went 5 days a week. And there's a point in training when it actually kind of starts to reverse its effectiveness.
Yes.
And I actually noticed that the more space I took between actually doing workouts, the more my muscles grew. Weird. We'll talk about that later. But this identity thing, I showed up to like my second class outside of the onboarding, and I didn't really know anybody, and I was absolutely terrified. There's women that could like bench press a car, sit next to me. I'm like, how am I supposed to keep up with these people? And this woman, Wendy, who'd been doing CrossFit for a long time, but it wasn't like looking like CrossFit. She showed up for the workout in the community, got her workout and left. She said, you know what? Give it like 2 months and I promise you it gets better. So like, all right, fair enough. So like 2 or 3 months in, I was starting to get stronger, but I was a little bit discouraged. And then I went to a different gym with the new coach as we were traveling. And I remember him saying, he was showing up to the whiteboard to explain the workout. And he said, good morning, athletes. And I'm like, athlete? I go, no, I'm just here for workout. And then you could just see how like jazzed up everyone was getting. And I thought to myself, wait a second, if I allow myself to believe I'm an athlete, a CrossFit athlete, then I'm going to do the part. And from that moment on, it was like, it was so profound for me. No one else cared. I was like, I'm a CrossFit athlete and I've done the CrossFit Opens and I've done competitions. I've won competitions. I've podiumed at competitions just by wearing that hat of identifying as an athlete when I'm in the gym. That was it.
I love that. I love that. You know, one of the things that I'm doing to like overcome my complacency is I've just started doing jiu-jitsu at the ripe old age of 41. I'm insane, I know. But it's so fun and it is so technical and it is so hard to try to think and like move at the same time. And I think because physically I felt like I needed a challenge. Like I never wanted to go and do CrossFit or anything. I mean, I've been like in weightlifting and like bodybuilding my entire life. And so I wanted to do something completely different. And I played rugby at university. And so I just thought, well, my son does jiu-jitsu and I sit there for hours watching him, you know, why not? And it is so fun. But exactly as you said, like it's you turning up to these sessions where I literally know nothing. And it's one, it's really humbling. Two, it's actually really nice to start from scratch at something new. But I definitely wouldn't identify as a jiu-jitsu athlete. Maybe I should, Renee. Maybe I should.
You just get dressed up like it every day.
Exactly, like a little ninja.
I started taking drum lessons in my late 30s.
Amazing.
And it was easier for me because I used to dance as a kid. So I understood like beats and counts and all that, which you wouldn't think it was a crossover, massive crossover.
Yeah.
And I loved it. And I think, you know, like coming to this idea of starting something late in life, but like 41, you're just a baby, is it actually builds new neural pathways in your brain. Mm-hmm. And it makes you look forward to something because when something's new, it's so fresh, it's exhilarating. It's kind of like, you know, when you're dating. Yeah. And it actually brings you joy. So I say, hell yeah. And jiu-jitsu is such a great thing, especially for women to have as a skill for self-defense. And just it's like, so honestly, I feel like I'm a 6 foot tall woman. I would look like a wet noodle being tossed around on a mat if I tried jiu-jitsu.
Oh my gosh, I look like a little midget then. I'm like 5'4 3/4. I can't even say I'm 5'5".
Yeah, I don't know. But my son did it. We spent a month in Austin and we signed him up for jiu-jitsu because it was just around the corner and he loved it.
It's so fun.
And what a great way, especially for kids. So good on you for putting your child in it, is that it helps them really understand their body and like what they can do and understanding their capacities and their strength. And it's like, we should all just go sign up. Everyone go sign up for jiu-jitsu.
I think the best thing about jiu-jitsu for kids is it's the discipline and the respect that comes with it as well. And, you know, I see how he has like his confidence has grown, not just on the mat, but outside of the mat as well. And, you know, I love Jocko Willink's teachings. And one of the books that he's got is The Way of the Warrior Kid. And it's about, you know, Uncle Jake, who's this Navy SEAL, comes to stay with this little boy, Mark. And, you know, he talks about jiu-jitsu and doing pull-ups. And I think because our kids have seen both David and I training and, you know, doing chin-ups and pull-ups since they were, you know, babies, it's just so normal for them to then want to try it and want to do that as well. So I think jiu-jitsu has been amazing for the kids, for sure.
Yeah.
And
Well,
hopefully it'll be
I'm
amazing for me as well.
really considering it. But there's other things that we're doing.
Yes.
So let's talk about then. So we like creating the discipline. I always say create something that's sustainable. There are some people that can just do like start something cold turkey or stop something cold turkey. Sorry. And then just jump into something like my husband. He's a great example of like, hey, I'm going to try and sign up for an Ironman. It can't be that tough. And now he's done like 4 fulls and 5 halves. He just got back from doing an Ironman.
Yeah.
I'm not like that. And this is why like my 30-day challenge was just about like that 1% every day. It's like last night I made Rice Krispie squares for the boys. And I was like, don't even have a bite, Renee. This is your challenge for the day. That's it. Just don't have a bite of that. And when you start to recognize these little areas in the day where you actually allow yourself to cave into cravings and urges, that awareness is enough for you to, oh, okay, stop doing it. But also what I wrote down is living with the guilt is also the worst thing. So like imagine if I did take a bite of the Rice Krispie square, then I'd feel guilty because I broke an agreement with myself. And then you go on the rest of your day having this guilt. Like it didn't do anything for me. Why would I do that?
The way that
Go
I
ahead.
just rewire that in, because this is so common, right? And you've got the self-awareness to know what that is, and then obviously build the boundaries in place of, oh, that was so silly, but next time I'm kind of building those gray areas, right? So you're not going to do it again. But a lot of people will carry that guilt with them, and then it's like the trigger then that's like, oh well, fuck it. Like I'll just, what we call those fuck it moments of, oh, well, it's been a bad day. It's been a bad week. It's been a bad month. Like I'll just write it off and start again on Monday. But the way that we rewire it, and you'll do this automatically anyway, but I just want to kind of spell this out for anybody that's listening, and as to like, how do I rewire my brain to actually stop that in the moment? And it's in the moment of, you stopped yourself and you were like, I know what the consequence of this is. And so you're very clear on that. But if somebody is not very clear on that, get clear on exactly who it is that you are. So what I say is who you are, what you stand for, and where you're going in life, which of course then leads back to identity, because that 2.0 version of you who is listening to this, the best version of you, they're not offline. Like a lot of women are just so offline when it comes to food, and it's just such an automatic habit. And so a very easy way to override and condition your identity actually in that moment is to remember your next level self. And then from there, I mean, look, mistakes and setbacks happen. Like, I mean, we all do it, where we've either had too many glasses of wine at night and you wake up the next day and you think, oh my God, what on earth did I do last night? We've all done it, and we've all been there where, you go to a buffet and you've just had way too much food. You're lying in bed and go, oh my God, my tummy hurts so much. Well, great. Like that's a mistake, but you'll know for next time. And so when we then look at like those gray areas of life and navigating those gray areas of life, of which there are many, this is how we build those guidelines. So, if you weren't on this 30-day challenge, it's probably it's not a big deal if you have a bit of Rice Krispie. It's probably something you make them for the boys. And then, you have your Rice Krispie and you move on with your day. And from a 30,000 foot view, that's not a big deal. But if somebody's having, biscuits in the office, and then it's somebody's birthday, and so they're having cake, and then you're making, your, Rice Krispies or whatever, and then you're having 3 of those Rice Krispies, and then you're going out for, dinner with your husband. And then next thing you know, by the end of the month, somebody's looking back on that and thinking, why haven't I lost weight? Was because you're disassociated. So when you really associate back into what it is that you're doing, and by the way, you don't need to track every single grain of rice and count your blueberries into plastic pots, but we do need to have some level of awareness here. So I love that, the way that you handle that. And because you do it so automatically, I don't think a lot of people realize like how automatic it is for you, but actually what goes on for them. So hopefully now, when you're in that moment where you go to snack or you have that craving, you have that physical craving, check in with your next level self, and she'll provide the answer for you.
Yeah, a glass of water. And I know this is like such a almost common cliched thing, but the boxed breathing method for anything that is starting to get you off track, because it takes like a minute, not even, where it's like, think of the box, right? It's 4 seconds of breath in, hold it for 4, release it for 4, and then hold that for 4. And it's an instant reset for anything, like disciplining my kids or going into a tough meeting or even confused about something I'm trying to solve in a spreadsheet. It's like a glass of water and boxed breathing. And then if there's still this urge to have a piece of chocolate, or if there's still this urge for something else, just be aware of that. But it's almost like when you create this habit, it's this quick reset, and it helps you reframe what's giving you anxiety. Like I'm having this weird thing with a friend that's like, nothing's wrong, but I felt like this energy was off about something for so long. And instead of just going right into it, I just sat there and I reflected, what is this teaching me? It's pulling up a mirror for what reason? So even like the, caving in and having a piece of the Rice Krispie square and then feeling guilty about it. What's this situation showing me? What do I need to learn from this? Because the intention is there, but the discipline is not. And then when you actually cave in, then this whole guilt cycle, it spirals, and guess what happens? It just gets worse. Then you just go back for a second and third serving because you're like, fuck it. At this point now, I already lost.
And if you think about this from like a spiritual perspective and like more of like a quantum perspective, so everybody's interlinked and connected, right? So whatever energy you're putting out, that's going to be matched. And so let's just say, for argument's sake, you kind of like, sometimes we do, right? We feel like there's a bit of an off energy between, like, whether it's with your spouse or your partners and your friends or whatever it might be. This happened to me recently, actually. So it's reminding me because you mentioned it, and I changed my energy towards that person, and it kind of resolved itself. And I think what happens sometimes is that if you're in that kind of a situation where then you're using food, alcohol, drugs, sex, whatever it might be to escape and to numb yourself, well, that just pulls you further out of your vortex and into that hole of, it's like a bad vibe or a bad energy. And, and it's one of those things where, sometimes negative things happen to people when they're in a really shit state. And, where you can't help but think sometimes, God, like, you really do attract some bad things into your life. They are literally magnetizing bad things into their life. And so you've got to be really aware of your state and your energetic state from I'm fully out of my spiritual closet, right? So I'm very mindful about how much like people are into talking about energy and not. But, you get to a certain level in business, like everyone will talk about energy and frequency. And so, you just be mindful of, if you've had a string of events happen to you, they're not happening to you, they're happening for you, and you're inviting that into your space, and then you're inviting that into your vortex. And so be aware of that. And this is why, again, comes back to identity. You have to change yourself. No amount of weight loss, no amount of money, no amount of anything is going to bring you out of that until you become the person who gets the thing. The thing is not going to create and bring you to be that person. You have to earn that. It's like lottery winners. You get given millions and millions of dollars and they lose it because they haven't evolved into that identity of a wealthy person. And it's the same when it comes to weight loss and fat loss. You have to evolve yourself into that person who makes decisions from that place of health before you're even there. So your body's a physical and a delayed representation of your physical self. So that's
so identity, huge. I love this. Also, the thing comes up for me is the word proof. So I know in these instances, we always we're searching for like these little ounces of proof that you are this person, right? So it could be the woman who needs to lose weight, and recognizing that is the proof in itself that you can do it. Because there's a lot of people coasting through life who are overweight, unhealthy for whatever reason, but won't even actually show up to the table and look at themselves as the problem. Because it's never about anybody else. We can throw all the excuses at the wall. It's literally never about anyone else. And I know this when going through this rough patch with my husband, Dan. Every relationship goes through this. And we're so committed to this being such a great marriage. And we hired a spiritual therapist. She helped us through for like a couple years. It took a couple years.
Yeah.
And when I showed up for our in-depth couples retreat. So it was just my husband and myself and our therapist. I honestly thought that those 2 full days was going to be working on like together. And 98% of the work was just working on ourselves.
Right. How good
I
is
was like,
that?
wait, you're telling me I'm wrong? It's not him, it's me. Because we have perception of the world. So our perception is what it is according to us. It might be right or wrong to somebody else, but it's the perspective that we need to shift. So it's like, so the perception is like, this is my awareness of my space. Okay, I'm overweight. I need to change that. And then the perspective is, well, there's all this information about counting your macros, hydration, exercise. Like we know what to do. Like let's not be idiots about this. We know what to do. But the perspective is you have to put on that new hat of the person who is losing the weight and getting healthy.
Absolutely. And taking full and extreme ownership. It's not your fault. I will say this, and I work with ladies who are very, very overweight, and whose health has just completely spiraled out of control. It's not your fault, but it is completely your responsibility. And so it is your responsibility now to find yourself somebody who can hold your hand and help you create the new habits and the discipline. And, I think one of the biggest things that we do for clients, if somebody asks me, oh, what is it that you do? And I'm like, well, I help people lose weight and get fit and get healthy and integrate that into their business and blah, blah, blah. What I really do for people is I believe in them more than they believe in themselves. And I hold that belief so high and so in my heart that they cannot fail to believe it themselves. And so I hold that space for them until they believe in themselves to then step into that. That's in a nutshell what I do. So when I look at somebody's before and after photos, somebody sends a photo of themselves into me. They're very overweight, they're unhappy, you can see it in their face, in their skin. I can pretty much tell like the quality of the food that somebody's eating based on their hair, skin, nails, the way that they look, etc. I've been doing this for 20 years nearly. I don't see that person. I see the after picture. And when I tell my clients, like, this is how I see you now, their behavior immediately aligns with that next level version of themselves. And I talk about it in intimate detail and I say, well, that's not you. This is all this picture is a physical representation of who you have been being. That is it. Divorce her. She's gone, right? Those old, you might have times where you want to fall back into your old habits and it's comfortable and whatever. Like we all do that, right? Whether it's in business, in relationships, whatever. But I'm seeing you as this person now. And I see that so clearly. And I described that client exactly who they really are. And there's something in them that also, they know that too. They know that they're here for more. They know that. And so when they're told that, they almost feel like so seen and heard and validated that they believe it then themselves. And that's really when the magic happens.
Okay. So let's go back to the thing you said about this not being their fault in terms of them being overweight. How is that so?
Because the industry the fitness industry in particular how can I say this? I can't say this in a politically correct manner. It's absolutely fucked. The absolute nonsense and drivel that is being spouted for women is ridiculous. And so I think we are making an absolute mountain out of a molehill. Every time I hear that a high-performing professional woman over the age of 35 needs to be training 5 days a week, tracking their calories and macros into a little app, weighing or counting their grains of rice, eating out of plastic pots. This is absolutely ludicrous. And no wonder women are losing their minds over this. We cannot shoehorn yet another diet and exercise program into an already chaotic lifestyle. Women are stressed, they're overwhelmed. There is so much pressure on us nowadays. So it's not your fault. You've probably been to quote unquote professionals who've told you to do these things. There are 2 ways to get into shape. 90% of the fitness industry tells you that you have to track your calories and macros. Now listen, Yes, you should know what is in your food. Tracking calories and macros is a great short-term educational tool, but if you are using that short-term educational tool to try and manage your behavior long-term, we're going to end up with problems. And so this is what 90% of the fitness industry does. Why? Because they don't know how to do it any other way. And if you don't do it that way, you get frowned upon by saying, well, you just don't want it badly enough. You do not understand women if you're going to tell women you just do not want it badly enough. And this is why it's not somebody's fault. You're trying to get away from something that you don't like. You're fat. I get it. You're overweight. Your energy is tanked. You've got brain fog. It's affecting your business. You're so stressed and overwhelmed already. All you need to do is just shut the door on all of that. Focus on your business as best you can because you're procrastinating all day. You can't think straight. You're really struggling to make high-level decisions. So I'm not surprised that trying to shoehorn this diet and exercise program into your already chaotic lifestyle is too overwhelming. So therefore, it's not your fault. The second way to get into shape is through self-worth and fueling your body and making sure that you've got a minimal effective dose, which is a non-negotiable for you, upgrading your identity, upgrading your standards. Quite frankly, your standards at the moment are probably abysmal. We need to raise those standards, bring them up to a point where you've got high standards. You are a person who is fit, healthy, lean, you have high standards and you do not negotiate on them. And so once we've got those two approaches, the second one is the only one that works. But unfortunately, very few people have the experience and the skill and the art of coaching in order to be able to do that. So that's why I always say it's not your fault. A lot of women have tried and they've tried really hard. They've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars sometimes. They've been in surgery. They've done all of the things, but they haven't done the basics. So let's make it really simple. Let's go back to the basics and the things that actually work for women when it comes to weight loss.
I love that. I'm actually reading Stacey Sims' book because I'm at the beginning of perimenopause. Yeah. And there's a lot of shifts that happen in life. And there's also a lot of misinformation and literally no information about women at this stage in their life because all the studies have been done by men. And she's kind of breaking this mold of really trying to understand weight training and cold plunging and all this stuff for women because it's just we're completely different species when it comes to hormones.
Absolutely. I don't know about you, Renee, but I definitely ain't getting in a cold plunge.
Oh, I hate it with like every ounce of my body. But I will say this though, I feel so good after I warm up. I get it. I do feel good. I think there's a time and a place for it. I do it out of a challenge. Like, hey, today I want to challenge myself. There's this really cool spot on the lake here where we are in the mountains in Canada in the wintertime because our lake doesn't freeze over. It's just such a big lake and it doesn't get cold enough in our city. But they have this thing. It's like a sauna on the end of a dock and you can cold plunge into the lake. And I will go up to my knees. And I have friends that just go all and like, good for you. I'm not that person.
No, me.
I'm like, I can challenge myself in other areas of my life right now. I don't need this one extra thing. And also the biggest thing right now for middle-aged women that I think, and I know you are going to agree with this, is to be so mindful, so much more mindful of the things that spike your cortisol, the stress hormone. What is stressing you out? Because the moment you consciously or unconsciously stress is when you default into that thing that makes you feel good. So it could be the Netflix binging. It could be all of the food you'll consume or those other things that are not good for you. So I think like to add to this, to not be complex, but I love how you're saying how it's not their fault because yes, like, I mean, we'll pay attention to the people we respect and admire, even if it is not right information, but also understanding where in life you're stressed and like, be honest about where you're stressed. Don't deny it. If it's a really shitty marriage, like be honest about that and work on that because we tend to just like water, follow the path of least resistance when we get stressed out because we want to numb ourselves and comfort ourselves in the quickest way possible, which tends to default to food or drugs and alcohol or whatnot.
One thing I will say on that is that what we've found to be true is that women, especially high achieving women over the age of 35, they are unnecessarily stressed because of the patterns of thought and behavior that are going on in their head 24/7. So we'll just touch on these quickly. Things like people pleasing, perfectionism, over analyzing, rumination over the past, worrying about the future, being a human doing. So this is something that I really struggled with in my early 20s. So that is basically being your self-worth being tied up in being busy and achieving. And any time that you stop or you relax or you go on vacation, then you feel lazy and sometimes even worthless. We have something what we've termed completion addiction, which is where you cannot rest, you cannot relax, you cannot sit down until all to-do lists are done, which is an absolute nightmare for our clients who are going through rounds of financing, which takes, months and months, sometimes years at a time, and they're raising multiples of millions of dollars. And they're still in that completion addiction. And then one of the final ones that's very common is what we call the campaign lifestyle. So clients will go and they'll go on this raise of obviously this phase of raising finance. Let's just say it's a short-term finance raise, and they're doing 8 weeks of raising X amount of millions of dollars. And then after that, they'll go on vacation, and then they'll chill, and they'll have one too many pina coladas on the beach. They'll come back in an abysmal state of health, and they realize that they've got to kickstart their fitness campaign again, up until the point where work kicks off again. And they're just living their life in these campaigns rather than being able to, balance. There is no such thing as balance in life, right? But you've got to be able to wear many hats and have a minimal effective dose when it comes to your health, because what you cannot do with health is put it down. It's like, your life is like a business, and you've got various different departments in a business, obviously sales and HR and finance and blah, blah, blah. You can't just pick up one of those and then put it down again. And people run their bodies and they run their life where they will do all of the things, but they'll just use health as one of these things that they can just pick up and put down, all whilst their level of health is declining year upon year, which is why so many women get to 40 and say, oh, well, this weight loss just came from nowhere. No, darling, the weight loss didn't come from anywhere. The weight loss came from decades of shit habits and shit behaviors. That's why you wake up when you're 40, you're fat, you're overweight, you're in an abysmal state of health, you're really struggling with your hormones. This is why. It's because of all the habits and behaviors that came before that. Now, look, are there outliers where there are so many fit people and you hit 40 and then, yes, there's that hormonal clusterfuck when it comes to perimenopause? Yes, of course there is. But for the majority, it's the decades of self-decay, which actually then leads to this moment in time where you wake up one day and you go, oh my God, what happened to me?
Yeah, your soft bottom or rock bottom moment.
Yes. Yeah.
And then the industry, again, going back to this not being your fault, also starts to throw all these things at you about your hormones. Oh, and hey, not to say these don't play a factor, because I know they do, because I'm experiencing that. I'll be 44 this summer. And I know it's happening. The hot flashes, the extra water weight that I hold around my stomach. Okay, I'm not changing anything in my life yet. These things are still happening. I'm still working out, and I get that. However, I think the awareness when it first starts is the most important thing.
Yes.
You gain that first 5 pounds, stop right there and understand what's happening. Is it the stress? Because if you're stressed, your body's holding on to it and won't release it. Don't let it get to 10 pounds or 20 pounds. And then if you're losing sleep, don't let it get to 3 or 4 nights in a row. Be aware of it right now and start doing the work to avoid it getting so bad that it's a big catastrophic event. And you have brain fog and you're making yourself sick.
Yeah. And, this is where, this is where I always say it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility. And, being responsible for your health and advocating for yourself is so important, especially in this perimenopausal phase where, it is stressful. And, I suffered with migraines, but, when I was 39 coming into 40. And so, that was a hormonal thing. And so I know what it's like, you can be as healthy as, but yes, there are these changes that happen, but it is much easier to deal with it when you're healthy rather than having had decades of behavior. And just one other thing to add as well there is that if you think it is normal, right, to gain weight after 40, people are sorely mistaken. It might be common, but it is not normal. And so if we take away that sort of that toxic that toxic attitude when it comes to health of, oh, well, you're just one of the lucky ones. We need to take that away. Like, it's not
Thank
normal for
you.
us,
Thank you
right?
for saying that. My good friend
Yeah,
Jackie Service is, I'm going to shout out to her because I absolutely love her. She's my friend who lives across the country who's coming to my house in an hour to work
amazing,
out because she's in town. And I'm like,
amazing.
how are we connecting? Come to my house, let's work out.
Yes,
Has never looked better. My friend
yes.
Anita, who co-hosted my big event with me recently, she's turning 50 this year, has never looked better because they said my health, the foundation of my life outside of me being a wife and mother and entrepreneur is to feel good. And like our responsibility to ourselves and to our community is to be
Hmm.
functioning at the optimal level. And these women recognize that and they
Yes.
look so good. And even though they don't have these perfect Sports Illustrated bodies, but they're pretty damn close in my mind, they just exude this radiance because
Oh,
they
gosh, I love
love
it.
themselves, they're proud of themselves, they have this energy, they're happy.
Oh my gosh, I
So
could not love that more. That hot, sexy energy that comes from a woman who is
that's
empowered and she
it.
knows herself. Oh my God. And I am seeing so many of my friends also all over 40, in their 40s, mid 40s, 50s, and they are hot, like hot.
Yeah.
And it is
I call it
so infectious to be around.
the give no fucks 40s. I
Yes,
like you wake up one day, you're like, fuck it. Like
here I am.
let's go. We're doing this.
Absolutely.
And I admire that. And also at one point in our conversation, I was thinking about these leaders in our world, like the top
Mm,
CEOs, executives, the top entrepreneurs, and those. And I don't want to shame anybody. I preface this by not wanting to shame anybody. I have more respect for the people who are leaders who have a great foundation of health and can lead a team and grow a business than those that are just grinding it out and don't look healthy.
I
And
completely agree.
I want to say this with the utmost love and respect. And I want to hug these people. Again, going back to what you say, it's not your fault. But there is a level of responsibility that we need as leaders to be healthy for our
Mm,
people. Set the example. You go to Martell Media, Martell Ventures. What do you see? The first thing you see when you walk into Martell Media, a gigantic fridge that says Martell Macros. And
mm,
these are meal prepped foods that come to the team. The rule is you have to be eating a meal prep. You're
yeah,
not allowed to eat anything else in that office. And the company pays for like over half of the food. So essentially
amazing.
there's no excuse
Oh,
because the
amazing.
company's foundation is healthy mind, healthy soul,
Mm,
healthy body. They do team workouts every Saturday. Like you
love
see
that.
it, like you don't have to be perfectly fit when you show up, but just know that when you're stepping into this role at this company, you're also stepping into a lifestyle. And
Absolutely. I
it's
love
abs.
that.
You see these people, like you see on the leaderboard, the salespeople that are getting healthier are making more money.
Oh, without question, because I don't know about you. In fact, we talked about this before we started, before we came on air. But I think both you and I were probably perfectionists, stress addicts, workaholics in our late teens and 20s, and you have to unlearn all of that behavior. And I don't know about you, but I used to sit at my laptop, back in the day in my early 20s where I had my like little ergonomic chair and I'd be sat there procrastinating on MySpace. We're going back some
Yeah.
quite a few years now, but procrastinating on MySpace because I had the worst brain fog. I didn't know what I was doing. I said I was working 16-hour days. I was not working 16-hour days. That is absolute bullshit. I was probably working like maybe 8 hours at best, but I was physically, yes, I was healthy. I was always training, but mentally, I was exhausted. And so I don't know how you can run a company that's worth, multi-millions of dollars. Like there is no greater flex than a leader who is in shape going in and leading a team. There is no
Oh,
greater flex.
100%. And also
You,
you're setting the standards for the
yes,
organization.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I completely agree. I think, you make more money. I mean, I can guarantee you, like all of our clients, all our private clients who've worked with us, they come for fat loss and they end up like with these enormous deals, massive pay rises. And it's like, well, funny that.
Oh,
Maybe I should
no
be a wealth
correlation
coach
whatsoever at
instead.
all. No, no. Even Dan said it. Like the question, like he talks about it's all over social too.
I
And
love that.
he gets shamed, but I understand because the people that are insulted by what we're saying right now are the ones that actually know that they need to do it.
Yes.
And we're not saying this to shame or to spite people. We're saying this because there's so much possibility for the people that aren't living this life yet, for
Yes.
creating this discipline and just being happy. Like, imagine just being happier. My friend Kira Foy, who's a hormone specialist, says most women don't know how good they can feel until they feel good,
Oh my
because they've
gosh, it's
always
so true.
lived with brain fog. They've always lived with lethargy
Yes.
or a headache, and they just normalized it until they start
Yes.
feeling good. And they're like, wait, what? So imagine
Yes.
like building a foundation of health where you wake up and you actually have energy and go and work out, and you're working out and you're getting in shape. Like, that's a possibility for everybody.
Absolutely. I love that. There's nothing more powerful than a woman who knows herself and who feels good in her body. Not good, just good in her body, good in her mind, good in her soul, as you alluded to earlier. And it's so important. And I think one of the big things that I also do with clients is remembering to have fun. You know, I think as women,
Mhm.
we're so conditioned to work hard as teens and then go and get the job and have the 2.4 kids and all of that stuff, and support the husband and be a good wife and, you know, do all of these things. But also, do you know what? Just have a laugh and have fun along the way, because
Oh,
it's
yeah.
so important, like pleasure in your life. You know, you're going to have such a great workout with your friend today. You're going to have a laugh. You're going to have such great banter. You're going to talk about super inappropriate things, and it's going to be hilarious. And it's going to
Totally.
fuel your soul. It's going to
Yeah.
fuel your soul, and you are going to absolutely love it. And your energy and your vibe for the rest of the day is just going to be amazing.
Oh, yeah. It's the best. Okay. We could talk for hours. I love this. So many great highlights, which I will summarize in our show notes. But I do have one last question for you.
Sure.
When I ask you what it means to be a wild woman, what is that for you?
To be a wild woman for me is to be free. And, you know, I saw this tattoo once and I loved it. And it said, "You keep me safe and I'll keep you wild." And that is mine and David's relationship, right? He keeps me safe and I keep him wild. And so for a wild woman for me is to be all that she is unapologetically. So for me, I am a little bit wild. I am rebellious. I am very direct. I'm very honest. And I do wear my heart on my sleeve. And so in all of the above, there's like multicolors to that rainbow, right? And I think as women, we're sometimes forced to be put in a box and, you know, just behave in this way. Don't be too much of this. Don't be too much of that. And well, what if we just accepted all of those things? And this is what I think has allowed me to be more of me, is to then have a husband who keeps me safe. And by keeping me safe, it means that he is just who he is. He is so grounded and he is so secure and he is so in himself. There's no jealousy. There's none of that in our relationship. And as a result, it's made me feel so safe to be fully feminine.
Mhm.
And I say that because prior to that, I would always kind of revert to the masculine if I didn't feel safe. And so that's what, you know, the wild woman to me is a woman who knows who she is, what she stands for, and where she's going in life, and accepts all of herself, right? The parts that she's working on, the wounded parts, the trauma, she accepts all of that and doesn't try to change herself. And so I guess that's what a wild woman is to me.
I love that. And now I want to get a tattoo. Thanks.
It's so good. I'll send you a picture of it. I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
it. I don't have any
Okay. Well,
tattoos, but if I was going to get one.
yeah. Same. I only have my ears pierced. Oh, and I have a little
Same.
diamond like on my tooth. It's a
Amazing.
permanent. So where can people go to find you online?
So if you'd like to find me, I'm most active on Instagram at the Rachel Godfrey. And then I have my fat loss education hub, which is at thehouseofonyx.com. And my main website is chaselifeconsulting.com.
I love it. Well, Rachel, thank you so much for joining us today.
Renee, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it. It's been amazing.